Welcome everybody to this Gita Satsang, and we'll be discussing chapter 3, verse 15, 16, 17, 18 and 19. Let's see how we can go about it, and let's continue. In the 15th shloka of chapter 3, Krishna says, "Know this divine vibratory activity to have been produced by Brahma, the cosmic creative force. Yajna, or sacrificial self-offering, brings the great cycle of cosmic manifestation back at last to itself." What does he mean by divine vibratory activity? Of course, he means Om. So it is Om, which is the creative force, which brought the manifestation of the universe into being, and it is a part and parcel of the divine. It is a divine creative force. And then he goes on to say, Yajna brings the great cycle of cosmic manifestation back to itself. Now, the great cosmic cycle of creation, Brahma, he keeps on sending forth this manifestation of this universe, and after a day of Brahma, he takes it back. It's called night of Brahma. Then again he throws them back into creation, and this goes on and on, again and again, repeatedly. And the souls he spews out have to find out their divine reality before they can go back home to God and merge. So after a while, when the souls keep on coming back and they find that they realize that now it's time for me to go home, that's when they can go. But the question arises that when the creation keeps on coming again and again, and this goes on and on, is there no end? So Paramahansa Yogananda answered this question. He said, no, there is no end. It goes on till endlessness. So the question arises, my goodness, when I heard that, I said, if I find my way to God, first of all, that also is a challenge for me. And then once I'm merged in God, again in the next time of creation, will I have to come back and then start all over again? So this question was posed to Paramahansa Yogananda ji, and he said, no. Once you have realized you have found your way back home to your divinity, then your story is over. So that is very relieving. Think of that. Okay. But there are souls. They have not gone back by the time the end of the day of Brahma has happened, and so they have to come again and again and again. And it's our choice, actually. It's our choice. We are the choice makers, whether we want to stay in our littleness or we want to go according to the natural process of creation's cycle. It's a natural process which says that when I let you out, if you don't resist, then you will be brought back to me. That's the idea. But what happens? We resist. We stay here. We want to indulge in our little enjoyments and little pleasures, and you say, no, don't shake me out of my comfort. I can't do that. So we have to, it is our choice whether we want to stay in our littleness or give it up. Giving up is not bad, because we feel that if I give up my ego, what will I be left with? But here we will be having something much higher, much beautiful. So the natural process means that we should transcend our ego. Okay, we'll go to the next, and here he comes to this verse which says, whoever resists this great rotating cycle, living in sin and preferring the ego-centered enjoyment of the senses, lives in vain. When he means by lives in vain, means people have vain hopes. They hope to find their fulfillment in name, fame, wealth, relationships, all those things. But they after some time find out that That's not going to give them the completion they are desiring, the satisfaction they are desiring. But why this creation? Why has God given us this ego also to transcend such a difficult thing? And so he says, for this he says, Divine Mother, actually Paramahansa Yogananda used to argue with Divine Mother a lot. He used to say, what is this? You created us. You got us into this mess. Now you have to release us. You have to take us back. All this. So, because it involves a lot of suffering. And but once it happened so that in a group meditation, Master, that is Paramahansa Yogananda, he went into Samadhi, as he often would. And in that ecstasy, he was known to say, he was heard to say, oh, Divine Mother, now I know, now I see why, now I understand why you have done this creation. So at that level of his evolution, he understood. Whereas at this level of our evolution, we cannot understand why we have to play with this game. Sorry. There was a devotee of, he was a disciple of Paramahansa Yogananda, and he revered Swami Kriyananda a lot. And seeing Swami Kriyananda and his immense devotion, his perfection, he felt very discouraged. And he compared himself with Swami Kriyananda and with Paramahansa Yogananda, and he said, I have so many faults. How can I ever reach that state? I can't do that. He was feeling very discouraged, and Swami Kriyananda very kindly told him, don't get discouraged. Just think of it this way, that I have been trying a little longer than you, that's all. And it is how long we can take. When we want, it is our choice, when we want to come out of our littleness. And that's how long it will take, that's it. If we don't resist, as he says, resisting, he says in the 16th verse, whoever resists this great rotating cycle, if we don't resist and we follow the natural cycle, we will go through it sooner rather than later. And the more we resist, the longer it can take. The next verse says, for him whose only love is the Supreme Self, who delights in the Self and rests contentedly in the Self, no duty remains. And the 18th says, such a person has nothing to gain by performing action in this world, nor anything to lose by not performing in it. He is dependent on no one and nothing outside the Self. He's talking about the yogi who has a saint, actually. He's talking about a saint who is now who is resting in his Supreme Self right now. But he says that even a saint cannot do without acting, because he acts as his divine duty, his divine dharma. He has to act. He knows he's one with the divine. It's just like how, take an image of, in school we used to, some of us acted in some plays or skits, and we played roles. Sometimes the roles were villainous, sometimes they were good roles. But we knew that it's only a role we are enacting, and we have to play the characteristics of that role, but we are not that role. So the saint knows that he is playing a role. He is not actually that which he is playing. And there's a very, very beautiful story. One of our teachers told us that in Ananda village, many times they enact the Mahabharata. So our teacher many times got the role of Bhishma. Year after year they would enact the play. And also he had villainous roles sometimes to play. He played them. And there was this friend of his, and that friend would always get the work of Shakuni. And actually that friend was such a jolly fellow, such a sweet person. But year after year he would enjoy playing Shakuni, who is supposed to be an evil person, because their personalities were so opposite to each other. And he was totally free actually. He just enjoyed, he had fun playing that role. So that is the way we can know our divinity inside of us as a true child of God, and yet we can play and enact the roles we are given in this lifetime without being involved in it and totally free. Then he goes on to say, he also says something about littleness. How do we transcend the ego? How difficult it is? What kind of a effort is required? It's like actually a bird in the cage. So for a long number of years the bird was in the cage, and then somebody came and opened the door of the cage. The bird came near the door and she said, no, I want to go back into my cage. In the same way we have this ego. Ego is defined as the soul identified with the body. Many times we have said this sentence, the soul identified with the body, this personality. But we are so familiar with it. It's become a habit. So we can't, even if we are nearing it, we want to go back into that ego. No, this is my personality, this is me. So this is also another example. And another example our teachers give us is of a little boy. He was around 5 or 6 years old, and he was acting very childish, like an infant. And his mother said, now don't act like that, you're a big boy now. And he looked at his mother and he said, but mommy, I don't want to be a big boy. In the same way, we don't want to come out of our comfort zone and transcend the ego. We just want to take it easy and just be. And the last verse says, therefore strive conscientiously during the performance of all actions, whether physical or spiritual, to act without attachment. By activity without self-interest, one attains the supreme. What he means by spiritual action is allowing God to act through you, and that is spiritual action. So he says, whether you are acting physically or spiritually, he says, act without attachment. Now in this case we feel, okay, I'm meditating now, okay, and as I meditate, in any form of meditation, if you come to a point when your breath stops, first it slows and then it stops, and then you notice that it has stopped, then what do? Like that, you suddenly take that breath, because the breath is associated with the ego, and the ego says, what about me? And he takes that big breath again. So slowly, he says, slowly, gradually, we will let off our ego. And another way to let off our ego is service. Now service is like a yagna, he said in the previous stanza, sacrificial self-offering. Many people think of service as, why should I serve others? Why should I not serve myself? If I serve others, they'll take advantage of me. Then they'll take advantage of me and all that. So why should I serve others? But when you think of others and you serve, this is like an offering of the self. He says, the way out of this delusion is yagya, that is self-offering. Even in meditation, we should try to offer ourselves. Many times in meditation, what happens? We try very hard, we concentrate deeply, we are very diligent. One day, a disciple came to Paramahansa Yogananda and said, "Sir, I'm trying so hard, I'm so diligent, I'm concentrating, I'm taking so much pains, but I think I'm not getting anywhere." So Master told him, "You're trying too hard." It means that to receive God in us, we just have to open our heart. We have to relax. For example, if we are teaching Hatha Yoga, what is the first thing of Hatha Yoga? That we should try to get into the pose in a relaxed way. You relax, you should not just violently get to touch your toes. You relax a little, then go forward more. Then relax a little more, go forward more. Eventually you will touch your toes. So in this way, even when we are meditating, well, spiritual fervor is good. We should try. We should say, "Mother, come to me," with all the aspiration of our heart, which is right. But we should not have the tension. We should relax. We should just offer ourselves, is what Master says. So the method which is given to us, and Bhagavad Gita is the greatest scripture which gives us a very practical and efficient advice how to get there, because now we have this ego, we have come into this creation, and now we can't do anything about it, but now what to do and how to do it is what the Bhagavad Gita tells us. So therefore it's the great scripture, and the path is the path of yoga. And also he says one more point there, that our goal is bliss, but bliss is everywhere and in everything, and suffering is not opposite of bliss. It is a lower octave of bliss only, is what he says. It is absence of bliss. So now the nature of bliss, it wants to expand itself, share itself with others. That's why God created, because he was bliss itself. He was Satchidananda, and he wanted to share his bliss with all. So he made creation, and in a philosophical term we can say it's God's play, it's God's Leela, or God wanted to enjoy himself through many. So we also, when we attain bliss to some extent, we get an understanding of others. Like for example, someone has hurt us, we will feel to condemn that person. We'll feel he shouldn't have done that, she shouldn't have done this way and all. But if you have had even a little taste of the divine, you would feel, oh, he or she is still in delusion. You'll have compassion for that person. You'll feel sorry for that person, that person is still wandering in delusion. Just like, for example, a child of 2 or 3 year old, and that child, maybe you corrected it. Maybe it was hurting itself, so you just minor correction you did. You didn't allow him to hurt himself, and he gets angry at you. He throws a temper tantrum maybe. So will you get angry back with him? No, it would be childish if we got angry back with a child who's angry. We would understand. We would say, oh, he doesn't understand. No? Like that, when we can understand a child, why can't we understand the adult? We can use the same thing with the adult. No? That they don't know what they do. So it's okay. So when we have that little peace of mind, when we are a little bit centered, we have that calmness, we will be able to understand each other much better. So joy to you.